So for those of you who don't know, my name is Adam, and I serve on our team here, and I get the pleasure of speaking with you. As you know, Pastor Chad is on his sabbatical time of rest, and I know what you're thinking, but he was here last week. I know it was Father's Day. He snuck in for a quick message, but he's back to resting and getting to a point where he's going to be fully refreshed to continue moving our church forward. Amen? Amen? All right. So I hope that you've been enjoying our series so far. What do you think? If it's all right? You like it? Yeah. Well, you know, we bashing social media. I say bashing. We're giving the pros and cons of social media a little bit. For some people, they don't like that so much, but it's okay. It's okay. So today, I want to talk to you about compassion. And I chose this topic because it's something that I struggle with. My counterpart, Miss Jessica, she's going to talk next week, and this would have been an easy message for her to do because she just sweats out compassion. It just pours out of her, but it does not for me. So I thought, hey, you know what? Because it's something I struggle with, I thought that I should talk on it. And last week, you know, as you heard Pastor Chad say, we're not all perfect. You know, we don't have it all together, and it's true. And I can tell you that compassion is an area that I have struggled with in my walk, and I'll get to why that is in just a little bit. But for those of you who haven't been here, if this is your first week joining us, I'll give you a brief recap. As we've been talking over the last few weeks about how we're trying to follow Jesus in a selfie-centered world, and about how technology could maybe hamper our relationships and our contentment, our joy. And in week one, we talked about how the more we engage in tech, the less we engage in person. Because we don't have to talk with people if we can talk over a device. You know, it gives that illusion that I have a bunch of friends. Like, how many of y'all have a bunch of social media friends, but you don't really know who they are? You're just friends with them? That number looks really high, but you don't really know who they are because you're not in a relationship with them. You know, we talked about how it gives you instant feedback because they're always commenting or liking or sharing, but they don't really add any value to your life. You're still somewhat lonely. And then Pastor Blake, when he joined us for the week, he continued that with how it affects our relationships. How we're not meant to be alone, but we're meant to be in relationships, and we're meant to be around a group of people. And, you know, if you haven't signed up for a life group, well, you still can. We still got a week or so left where you could get plugged in and get connected and be around some people who maybe are sharing your struggle or who have some experience that can help you through your journey, through your walk. And then last week, Pastor Chad talked to us about how we keep it authentic and how we try to be our true self and that we don't wear the mask of something else. So today we're going to talk about compassion. And the University of Michigan did a study on like 14,000 college students between 1979 and 2009. So like a 30-year period. And it showed over that time what seemed to be a sharp decline in empathy. And it came out to say that, based on their statistics, that we care 40% less than people did in the 80s. Some people just don't care. So why do you think that is? Well, for me, I think it's because it's a completely different time, and there's a completely different set of criteria and variables that play a factor in that. I mean, with advances in technology now, we can do almost everything online, except eat. I mean, you can't physically eat the computer, but you can order food, you can buy goods and services, you can pay for things in advance. It's already ready. Like my wife, when we go on vacation, she's got an app. I don't even have to see the little check-in lady. She just checks in on her phone. And then she goes to the cool little door and uses the digital key and opens it up. And then we don't even have to check out. We don't even have to mess with people. You can do almost anything with technology nowadays. But with that, we also don't get to interact with people. We don't get to talk to people. We don't get to use all those people skills we had to learn in school. we just, kind of stay isolated. I mean, she was having an issue the other day. She was trying to book a hotel for something, and she found a better deal, and she had an issue. So instead of calling customer service, she hit him in the chat box. She didn't have to call him. Who wants to be on phone all day, on hold, with elevator music for 20 minutes? Hi, what is your, yes? Oh, hold please. Holding again. But no, she was in the chat box just talking to people. Don't even have to deal with people. Don't even have to talk to people. So some of the things, some of the little nuggets they got out, or some of the descriptions that they've alluded to from this little survey was, I sometimes try to understand my friends better by looking at their perspective. So in some ways, it did kind of help. I often have tender, concerned feelings about the less fortunate. Okay, that works too. And then they had some of the other ones that said, fewer call themselves softened, or soft-hearted, and others' misfortunes don't bother them that much. Kind of one of those, I'm glad I'm not that guy. How many of y'all have seen that on TV or social media? Somebody blasts something like, whoo, thank goodness it was them and not me. Because I know I've done it at least once. Not that it's a good thing, but I've done it at least once. So, but what we see is with technology and comes our compassion is because we don't have the relationships with some of those people, we end up with what I call drop-in compassion. Just kind of going through the motions, right? Somebody, you saw it on the video. Somebody lost their job or somebody's sick. And what do? Sad emoji, praying hands, send, right? We just checking the box, making sure people know, hey, look, we're still paying attention to your social media. Don't worry, we're still looking there. But what is that? Are we really sad? Or are we just playing the part of what they were trying to do? Because not all social media is bad, but some people elicit a response. They put something out there, so what? You comment back, you feedback so they can feel, like they have friends, like they're valued. But that's not always the case. And we sometimes, because of that, just hit that drop-in compassion. That, hey, happy, woo, somebody got a dream vacation and they're going away for like 14 days. You're like, yay, happy face, excited. And inside you're just, I want to be them so bad right now. Jealous. So how does technology cause us as people to care less? Well, I'll tell you. Thank you for asking. The first part is that we become more obsessed with ourselves. It becomes more focused about me. Last week, Pastor Chad talked about the duck lips and all the selfies. But think about it. A lot of social media posts are about who? You. They're about you or your family. And look what we have done. When I was growing up, I used to watch a show, whether my mom knew or not, called Mad TV. And they do a bunch of comedy sketches. And one of them was a guy named Stewart, and he was like a big adult kid. And every time he wanted to show you something, he was like, look what I can do. And in some ways, that's kind of like how social media is for us, Look what I can do. Woo! Post. Yes, like, woo! So excited. But what we don't realize is it's actually, so they say that statistics show that 80% of the time when you post on social media, it's like using a drug. And what I mean by that is there's a hormone that your body produces called dopamine. And it affects your pleasure senses. So what happens is when you make a post, you put a post out there. But when you post, you're usually looking for what? A response. Somebody to like, somebody to comment, somebody to share. And every time you get a ping, a notification, it's great. And you feel excited. And you're like, yes, look how many likes I got. Look how many times that video played. It was awesome. Now, in some cases, it's okay. It's okay. In some cases, it may not be. Like, I know, just because I'm into that kind of thing, when we did our story videos, y'all remember them story videos we did? And every time it'd go on YouTube, and I'd be like, ooh, how many views did we get? Yes. People like it. Good. But it doesn't always work that way. It doesn't always go that way. And we need to not always think about ourselves, but what about other people? How much of your feed is celebrating others, congratulating others, doing stuff for others and not just yourselves? Proverbs 27 and 23 says, know the state of your flocks and put your heart into caring for your herds, caring for other people. So sometimes we are more obsessed with ourselves, and we need to be more selfish and more selfless, focusing on others, caring for others. Number 2, overwhelming exposure to suffering desensitizes us. That is all the stuff we scroll on our feed. You saw she used an example in our bumper there about the kids were starving in Africa, right? How many of y'all seen those videos? They come, hello, this is Andy, and for only 50 cents a day, you can provide clean drinking water for him and his entire village. Now, I mean, you've all seen them, right? And the earlier versions of me, like I'll call it pre-LC, would go, yeah, but how much money did you spend on this ad? You could have fed his whole village for like 3 years. Or the what is it, the SPCA commercials? And Sarah McLachlan comes on, talking about, will you remember me? And you're just like, oh, it's so depressing. And then you see it so much that you just want to what? Oop, nope, change the channel. Infomercial? No, thank you. I'll pass. You know, it desensitizes us to some of those things. It's easier for us to just ignore it and just keep scrolling. I know that the desensitized part affects me as a person because, like, for those of y'all who don't know, not only do I get to hang out with you cool people on Sundays, but I also serve as a firefighter and a paramedic. So more often than not, I get to meet people. I get to share stuff with people in the absolute worst times of their life. You know, there's a common phrase that we use in our work. It's not necessarily the greatest phrase, but it's a phrase nevertheless. And it's a great day for us is a bad day for someone else. You know, we're meeting people in the worst part of their lives. And oftentimes, our job is meant to be fix the situation. How do I address the situation, fix it, and get them to where they need to be? Oftentimes, that doesn't leave a lot of room for compassion. That doesn't often lead a lot of time for you to be what we call in your feels. You have to just turn that little switch off and critical thinking, problem solving, do what you need to do to get the job done. The hard part is knowing when and where to switch it on and switch it off. That's what makes it difficult. And I, as a person who struggle with that, because my switch tends to stay on more often than it's off, is I have to be able to come home and be with my wife and my kids and be able to be, hey, Dad, let me show you this. All right, cool, and actually care about it and say that you are not caring about it, so to speak. So sometimes you get desensitized to some of these things. You you don't always know how to handle the situation. You don't always know what to do. And that's okay. You ever heard the phrase, it's okay to not be okay? It's okay to not always know what's going on, to not always know how to handle the situation. But I will tell you that it is also about perspective. A few years ago, we had a speaker come in. His name was John Morgan, and he dropped a little nugget on us. It was a great little nugget, and I'll share that nugget with you. You're welcome. He said, you don't see it until you see it. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'll say it again in case you were taking notes. You don't see it until you see it. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I thought that was cool. You know, that's a great little sticky statement. But it wasn't until I learned. So I've said many times before in other messages that we had the privilege several years ago to go to Nicaragua and to go do some missionary work over there. We got to go spend some time doing some construction and praying for some people in the hospital and handing out some food, which is crazy, by the way, because we broke it up into like little packages. It was like little things of beans, little things of rice. And I'm looking at this Walmart bag going, that's my house for 3 days. That's a meal for 3 days. That's one meal and a couple leftovers. That's it. But they stretched that out for like months. And they were so content with everything that they had. Like you watch the stuff on your TV and you're like, oh man, that's bad. Ooh, pray for them. But until you go there, you don't know. And they're so excited. They're so glad you're there. They're just thankful that you're spending time with them. Even though they have nothing, they're so happy. They're so happy. It doesn't even matter to them. They don't, well, I guess some of them don't even know any difference. We're over there like, oh, we're dying. It's terrible. There's no AC in here. Right? Because we're from South Louisiana. We just know what it's like with no AC. It's hot. Your sweats. It's bad. But they were just so happy. And you learn to be thankful. Like I was thankful for a shower that wouldn't kill me. You know? Little things in life. So at the place where we stayed, they don't have water heaters. No. That's a luxury. You don't get to have water heaters. Instead, what they had was a 110 line that goes to the top of the shower head. That is attached with tape or a wire nut if you're lucky. And the best advice they give you is be quick, and if you feel a tingle, get out. I was like, what? If I feel a tingle, it might be too late. I might be fried already. So it was one of those, like, you had to, like, get in real quick and then get out. Whew. Soap up. All right, time it. No tingle. Okay. Whew. And then you didn't die. That was the most important part, that you just didn't get fried while trying to take a shower. Who knew that good hygiene could kill you? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. So sometimes it can desensitize us, but once we begin to change our perspective, once we begin to change the way we look at things, it makes a difference. Another thing is the lack of personal interaction makes it easy for us not to care. When we don't have anything invested into it, when there's no relationship to it, it's easy not to care. It's so easy not to care. We get to ignore the suffering from a distance. Why? Because we don't have to be with that person, dealing with and going through the emotions. We just sad face emoji, praying hands, move on. We don't have to be there with them. It's easy for us not to care. James 1:27 says, pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you. It's about being there for others, making the difference. Even when you don't think it matters, trust me, it matters. So where is this all leading? You might wonder quietly to yourself. Well, I'll tell you. It boils down to true compassion. True compassion is going to demand some action on our part. It's going to demand us to actually do something besides click a button. You know what? I had a funny word, and then I can't say it because it's really long and crazy. We have that? Did I put that in there? Oh, well. It's a, I bet you I could pull it up on here, though. Let's see. Splonknizomai. That's a funny word. I like funny words. Funny words are fun. Splonknizomai. There you go. Isn't that a fun word? I like fun words. But it says to have your bowels yearn, to feel a deep sympathy, to be moved to action. Because to say you care but not act is to not care at all. It's just to not care at all. You know? What social media platform am I on? Should I click? Should I like? Should I share? Because guess what? Caring is not clicking. Caring is not clicking. It's an act. It's an act that we have to do. See, caring is not liking the post. I don't like the post. It's about having a relationship with the person. It's about loving the person. It's about being intentional with your actions. How many times have we done the drop-in compassion? How many times have we just been like, oh, so sad, click, move on. They know I care now. It's okay. We've all done it. I've done it. I'm guilty of it. But Philippians 2:4 says, don't look out only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. Be focused on other people besides yourself. I mean, I'm going to rapid fire through some scripts real quick, but it's just some examples just to show you how compassion leads to action. You know, we talk about it in Mark 1:40-41, where a man with leprosy came and knelt in front of Jesus, begging to be healed. He's begging to be healed. And what does he say? If you are willing, you can heal me and make me clean. If you're willing. So he didn't come up there and was like, come on, you're going to do it, you're the man. He was like, not my will, but your will. If you're willing to heal me and make me clean. And because of that, Jesus was moved with compassion and reached out and touched him. And he said, I'm willing. And he was healed. Matthew 14:14 says, when Jesus landed, he saw a large crowd, and he had compassion on them and healed their sick. And what was going on was Jesus was in a boat trying to make things happen, just going from one place to another, and a huge crowd was following him. And he was just so overwhelmed with compassion for this crowd that was following him that he stopped and began to preach. Matthew 20:34 says, Jesus had compassion on them, and he touched their eyes, and immediately they received their sight and followed him. Notice how when there was compassion, there was action. The action was a result of the compassion. So we're going to talk for a few minutes on some things about compassion. Some things about compassion. And the first thing is compassion interrupts. Compassion interrupts. Well, what does it interrupt? Anybody want to guess? Lots of things. Lots of things. Compassion interrupts a lot of things. When I was getting ready for this message, just kind of came to me that compassion doesn't equal convenience. Compassion doesn't equal convenience. Because anytime you're called to be compassionate, it's usually not at a convenient time. It is usually at a very inconvenient time. And I think that's just God's way of just, He just picks on us like that sometimes. Because it's never convenient. It's not like I didn't have nothing to do. I was just sitting around the house doing nothing, killing time. No, it was always when I'm in the middle of something. And it's one of those kind of pokes that He does with, yes, I want to do what I was working on, but how important is that? Is it just important to me or important to the work of the kingdom? So let's look at some examples of some inconvenience. In Mark chapter 6, Jesus was resting. Because, He's all day walking because they don't have, modes of transportation that are fast in His day. So He was walking, and He was tired, and He had been preaching. So He was trying to get some rest in. He's trying to take a breather, give Him a 15-minute, standard work break. But He was tired, and He wanted to rest in a quiet place. But the large crowd was gathering, and He wasn't able to eat, but He saw the hunger. And He saw the drive in them. And it goes on to say in Mark 6:34 that Jesus had compassion on them. Jesus had compassion on them. And so He took that time to teach them a great many things. Was it convenient? No. It was interrupting his break. But with compassion that He saw on them, He took compassion Himself. And you know what? Say, it's okay. I can skip my break a little bit. This is something more important. In Luke chapter 8, Jesus was walking through the city to go heal a girl who was dying. And in the midst of a crowd, a woman reaches out and touches Him. And He was like, who did that? Who touched me? And Peter was like, dude, we're moving through a crowd. Everybody's touching you. And He's like, no, somebody touched me because I felt some of my healing leave and exit. And so they stopped to assess the situation and come to find out a woman who was very sick, had been sick for years, reached out and touched Him, and she came forward after the fact when He was like, who touched me? And because she had worked so hard, He took compassion on her and He healed her. After being sick for years, healed her. There was some compassion in what He was doing. Mark chapter 2. Again, Jesus is praying and He's teaching. And the guy was injured. He was paralyzed. And they were trying to get him close to Jesus, but there was a big crowd and they couldn't get close. So His friends, which are the most awesome friends in the world, decided, hey, we're going to get creative, and they started aerial operations. They went airborne. They took out the roof, right? Could you imagine how Jesus was doing that? Just praying. And all of a sudden the roof opens up. He was like, I was good, but I wasn't that good, right? And then now the man's being lowered in, and he was so taken back by their faith that it took, that they knew that they had to get their friend to Jesus, that he was the only one who was going to be able to heal them. And because of their faith and the compassion that he had for the situation, he healed the man. He healed the man. He made a way. And if you don't take anything away from that, just know this, that God often works in interruptions. God often works in interruptions. Maybe it's you answering a phone call from somebody who's going through something difficult. Maybe it's praying for somebody who needs prayer. Maybe it's changing a tire for somebody at a wee hour of the morning. Maybe it's staying over after life group to listen to what somebody has to say because they have so much they want to say that they couldn't get it all out in group. Too often, I think we get too rushed. We get too rushed in life. Everything's so fast in our life that we end up missing the blessings of God through his interruptions, through what he wants to do through us to make a difference in somebody else. Because like I said, the interruption doesn't come at a convenient time. It comes when we're busy doing something else. When it's not convenient. But God's going to give us that little interruption, and it's up to us to recognize it and use that opportunity to make a difference in somebody else's life. So, all these things we've been talking about, how technology, how it's about being obsessed with ourselves and oversensitized or being desensitized. I was thinking of, I tell a lot of my leaders when they're having difficulties or when they're having things they want to coach and mentor their team on, is it's all about the picture that you paint. What is the picture that you're creating, right? Follow me so far? And they often say that a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? We've heard that many a times before. So I try to take it a step further, because it's cool like that. That if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then what are the 1,000 words that your picture paints? What are those 1,000 words going to say about you or that situation? Are they going to be positive 1,000 words, or are they going to be negative? I've had that question posed to me a couple times. And what I've always done is I've just had to sit back and go, you know what? I probably didn't handle that situation the best way. I didn't use the most compassion that I could have. I was maybe insensitive at the time, that I didn't fully have a good perspective of what's happening. But if a picture is worth 1,000 words, what are the 1,000 words that your picture is painting? And just like compassion interrupts, compassion also costs. It costs us some things. Now, I know what you're thinking. So it's a money thing. No, not always a money thing. It is financially some things at some times, but it's about all levels of generosity. And to be compassionate is to be generous. They go hand in hand. Because in order for me to be compassionate, sometimes I have to give up some time to be with some people. I have to give up some of my abilities to work with some people and to coach with some people. We have people who care on our team, so they help each other out, whether it's playing an instrument, whether it's singing, whether it's running some media in the back. Whatever the case is, people always take time to help somebody. Maybe it's just talking to someone who's having a bad day. You never know where you're going to find those people, because you never know what's going on in their life. So we have a team of guys that get together that help create these experiences, right? And over the Memorial Day weekend, we took a little getaway, and we started getting ready for At the Movies. Who's excited for At the Movies? I know I am. I love movies. But At the Movies is coming up in a few months, and we started getting ready for, hey, like what movies we're going to do, you know, and it's a tedious process. I know the movies look good on the screen, but it takes a lot of work to make them look that good. And these guys are really busy. So in the process of doing all this work, we need to feed the brain and we need to feed the stomach, right? That's how this works. You got to keep the energy flowing. So we went out to Dairy Queen because we like Dairy Queen. There's not one in Houma. So it was close. It was cheap. It wasn't super expensive. And we met a guy there named Randy. And Randy was an interesting fella. He was an interesting fella. So we got introduced to Randy because we walk in, and the ladies, because it was mostly ladies working there, are like making blizzards, you know, cooking up fries. And I assume Randy was the guy who was going to be taking our order, but he was nowhere to be found. And we're in there, you know, and all we hear is, Randy! Randy! We're like, this is bad. I hope Randy's okay. And Randy comes strolling out, you know, from the back. And this guy, it's one of those bless your heart moments. All right, this guy had a lot going on for him. And this job was not doing him any favors. And so we get our food, and we had to walk him through it because he was having some difficulties. But, hey, you know what? We were patient. We were kind to this guy when nobody else was. I guarantee you, they were not nice to this guy. And so we were eating our food, and, like, you just see him kind of, like, duck off and go hide in the bathroom again. So after a while, I'm starting to laugh now because it's funny. Because every time they holler for him, he goes duck off in the bathroom. So I go find Randy in the bathroom. I'm like, hey, man, you all right? And he's just like, yeah, they're mean to me, and I really don't like this job. And you know what? He just needed somebody to talk to in that moment. And then I felt bad for Randy. There was a little compassion there because they were mean to Randy. And he just tried to get their order. And, you know, when you were like, hey, I want wings. And he's like, what are wings? And you're like, oh, my. You know, you felt bad for him. He was bringing some of it on himself. But you know what? Patience. It cost us some time. And it cost us, actually, it didn't cost us anything. That was great. But we had an opportunity to just talk with him and let him know, like, hey, you know what? It's not that bad. Not everybody's going to be like this. Some people actually care, and it's going to be okay. See, I'm working. I'm trying to get better. But when it comes to generosity, what are you willing to spend? What are you willing to spend on compassion? What are you willing to give up? You know, and before we changed some of our values, one of the things we had when it came to generosity is we give up things we love for the things we love more. Because it's about generosity. It's about what can I give, not what I can get. And then one of the last things that compassion does is it changes our lives. It changes our lives. See, clicking is clean. You just click and move on. It's easy to do. But compassion gets complicated, right? Because that means we have to get involved. We have to come to action. We have to be there. We have to be present. But when you are present and when you are compassionate, it changes lives. I just gave you a whole bunch of examples of when Jesus felt compelled by compassion. He did all these things. And what did he do? He made blind people see. He made deaf people hear. He fed hungry people. He restored people who were broken. There becomes an internal shift in perspective. You begin to see things differently. It wasn't until I went to Nicaragua that I began to see things a little differently. I had never been exposed to some of those things, so I didn't have a good perspective. But it wasn't until I was involved, until I could see it, that my perspective changed. See, what we don't often realize is that compassion changes lives. That's what it says up there, right? Compassion changes lives. But what we often don't realize is that the life that it changes is ours. It does something to us. Yes, people like it when you're compassionate and you show empathy towards them, but it's a thing that changes you prospectively. So when it comes to compassion, the struggle can be real. It can be. But what are you struggling with regards to compassion? How is it affecting you as you stand all over the house this morning? We said earlier that to care and to not act is to not care at all. But that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be someone who doesn't care at all. I want to be someone who cares for the people in this world, for the people that we do life with, our church family, our friends. We want to be in relationships with them. We want to do life together. Because the more I care about social media and what I'm doing on there, it just keeps me focused on me. But it's not about me. It's about the we. It's about us. And the closer you get to Jesus, the more you care. And the more you care, the closer you get to Jesus. So what is the picture that you're painting? Is it one that's generous and full of compassion? Is it the picture that you're obsessed with yourself, or that you don't care about others, or that you're desensitized to real life events that are real struggles for people, even though you're not going through them? They're real for someone else. And if they're real for someone else, that means it affects them deeply. And if you're in relationship with them, it should affect you as well. So in just a few moments, the band's gonna lead us into a time of worship, and I encourage you to step out wherever you are. You can come to the front and pray and worship and just ask God, what areas of my life am I struggling with compassion? How is technology distracting me in my level of compassion for others, making my relationships absent, making my caring non-authentic, but just sad face, praying hands, go. Because that's easy to do from a distance. It's more complicated when you're up close and personal. So if that's let's just make that our prayer this morning. Would you lift up your voices with me? We'll just pray for that. Jesus, we thank you. We thank you for today's message as a constant reminder that no matter where we are in life, that we continue to increase our compassion. Lord, that it not be about us, but to be about others. To just not know ourselves, but to care for others as well. Lord, that we would develop compassion like you, to just stop what we're doing at the drop of a hat to help our brother, our sister, our family who is in need. And Lord, that you would just give us the strength, Lord, the wisdom to notice when you're interrupting our lives for an opportunity to make a difference in someone else's. And Lord, we thank you for what you're doing. We thank you for the difference that we're going to make in someone's life because you gave us that opportunity and we took advantage of it.